Welcome to the August 25th meeting of the Glendale City Council. May we have a roll call, please?
Council members Draymond.
Here.
Friedman.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Mayor Quintero.
Here. The flag salute this evening will be led by Councilmember Najarian and the invocation by City Clerk Kessler.
Please rise and face the flag. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for the invocation. August 26th of each year is designated in the United States as Women's Equality Day. Instituted or established in 1971, the date commemorates the passage of the 19th Amendment to our Constitution, the Women's Suffrage Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which gave U.S. women the full voting rights in 1920. Lucy Stone, an outspoken social activist, a community organizer, if you will, and true American patriot, on behalf of the abolitionist and suffragist causes, once spoke that now all we need is to continue to speak the truth fearlessly, and we shall add to our number those who will turn the scale to the side of equal and full justice in all things. It is no coincidence that amongst the suffragists there were many abolitionists as well, for in the eyes of a greater power than humankind, the grantor of our inalienable rights, there are no variations of freedom, no types of liberty, no shades of equality, but a singular ideal upon which our nation was founded. Tonight we say a prayer of thanks for those who challenge the written law, seeking to attain a society committed to more powerfully to our constitutional ideals, that greater law, a society where women can and should vote. We pray that we may learn from the past to make the future brighter for all. Amen.
Thank you. Next, please. You have your report.
The agenda for the August 25th, 2009 regular meeting of the Glendale City Council was posted on Thursday, August 20th, 2009 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Next, please.
Presentation and appointments, and 3A is a agenda preview for the meetings of September 1st, 2009.
Ms. Spears.
Mr. Mayor, I'll go to John Tactalian, Assistant to the City Manager.
Good evening, Mayor Quintero, members of the City Council. For next week, September 1st, Glendale Housing Authority meeting, there is one item at 6A as the Acting Director of Community Development and Housing regarding new project sponsors to operate federal economic stimulus homeless and homeless prevention programs. There are no items on the Glendale Redevelopment Agency agenda. For the Glendale City Council agenda, there are a number of consent items. At 5B is the Director of Public Works regarding Grandview Avenue pavement repair. At 5C is Director of Public Works regarding Stalker Street Rehabilitation Project Phase 2. 5D, Director of Public Works regarding the I-5 Western Avenue Access Program. 5E, Director of Parks and Recreation regarding amendment of Morrison Healthcare Food Services Contract. 5F is the Director of Parks and Recreation regarding request for proposal for catering services for elderly nutrition program. 5G is the Director of Parks and Recreation regarding holiday lighting on Brand Boulevard. 5H, General Manager of GWP regarding execution of Amendment Number 1 to existing contract for the Diedrich Reservoir Backup Pipeline Project. And at 5I is the Chief of Police regarding increase in allocation of the United States Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, Bureau of Justice Assistance, 2009 American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, Justice Assistant Grant. Moving on to action items, there are two. At 8A is the City Attorney regarding the process revision for Board, Commission, appointments, and terms of office. And finally, at 8B is City Manager regarding a report seeking approval of the City's state lobbyist contract with the firm of Townsend Public Affairs.
Okay. Thank you. Next, please.
Mr. Mayor and Council, next on B through D are nomination assignments, and again, these are just nomination assignments pending what steps you may take regarding nominations of commissions and boards. So at 3B is a nomination assignment for a CDBG Advisory Committee, Councilmember Weavers. At 3C is a nomination assignment for the Transportation and Parking Commission for Councilmember Friedman, and at 3D is a nomination assignment for the Transportation and Parking Commission, and that is also Councilmember Weaver, and 3 is a nomination assignment for the Transportation and Parking Commission, Councilmember Draymond.
All right. Next.
At F is Mayor's commendations to STAR graduates.
And I see we have lots of STAR graduates in the audience.
We crowded the halls with happy faces tonight.
They are. They do look happy.
Hope that's okay. I'd like to introduce everybody again. I'm sure you've already met Miss Maria Perez. She's our wonderful hourly employee that helps run the day-to-day activities of the Star Youth Program, which I've run for about 7 years or so. Again, if anybody doesn't know, I'm Officer Sue Shine. I'm assigned to the Community Policing Bureau of the Glendale Police Department, and it's been my honor and responsibility to direct a very long-term, wonderful mentoring program that I know City Council is very well aware of, students training as role models. And it's long-term in mentoring in that the kids don't just drop by and play ball and go home. They stay with us. They come, they do homework, we mentor them, we educate them. We have a curriculum-based lesson plan program. Kids that wear their shirts every day get 5 points for being there with their shirts, and they get points for showing up on time and for doing good deeds. And those that don't wear their shirts, what happens? Push-ups. So 5 points, you lose, so you get 5 push-ups for every kid that doesn't wear a shirt. So there's been some weeks that we've had a lot of push-ups. But they're a resilient group. They have a contest based on character and leadership abilities, and at the end of the contest, they're awarded either prizes or we go on a special outing. This year we were able to go to Malibu and do 2 nights in a wonderful camp. And the best part for the adults that were there is there was no cell phone service. So I think it was a very liberating experience for everybody there. At the end of many years' service in the Star Youth Program, what happens is we kind of come to the end of the road. We intake at 9 to 11 years old, and then when they're about 14, 15, they're in high school. They have a lot of obligations that pull them away. We really need to let them go. So we started doing this graduation. Based on the number of hours that they do in community service at Autumn Hills and picking up trash and doing the graffiti paint out, trail maintenance, writing to service members and killed officers in the line of duty, doing all kinds of things as needed and as requested by the adults, and they come up with some amazing ideas themselves. We feel that they deserve a commendation from the members of the city to show the rest of the community what our young people are capable of doing at a very early age. So I'd like to bring, I have 8 actually that I'm graduating, so I'll go through them really quickly, one of which I think is stuck at football practice. So I'll bring the 7 that are here up and briefly introduce them. And so my graduates, come stand behind us if you would. Thank you. And there's Jaime, he made it. There he is. Look at that. Good timing. Sure, like this. The first, and the reason I'm reading, I don't normally read, but if I don't read, I'm going to cry. So the first one I want to honor with just absolute take the hat off and give a bow to is Miss Linda Perez. She's been in this program for, she started in April 2003, and I'm no math genius, but I think that's about 6.5 years of this girl's life. And she has been a star from the beginning. She's a natural leader in a very quiet way. As I indicated with what I gave you, the only time that she's not fair is during water fights. But at one point we had all 5 Perez children in our program. And they've all been amazing. Older sister Susanna graduated, and she's off, I understand, married now. How is that possible? Older brother Micah is an explorer with the Glendale Police Department, and we're honored and privileged to have him continue with our family. George is doing great, and he's just about to finish high school. And so we have Linda and Jaime from the family who are graduating tonight. Linda, as I said, is our longest member. She's 15, and she's going to Glendale High, and she's obviously a track girl because you can tell her fat cells go like this. They don't. She just gets taller. So Linda is our first graduate. I want to give you your certificate here, Linda. Thank you. Stand right there so I don't lose you. Okay. And in the nick of time, I just gave you your brothers. You know that. Your brother Jaime, come here. My goodness, this young man right here not only is a mentor to the kids here, but when I bring my 9-year-old, he mentors him. So it's see, I'm going to cry. I have to read. Okay, I'm going to give you Linda's. You're going to give that to her and switch. Okay, thanks for coming down. I'm glad you made it, man. And he too is going to be entering Glendale High here in about a minute. So he's going to be tearing it up on the football field over there. One of our other amazing families that we have extended is led right now by Rafael Martinez. His sister, Teresa, graduated 2 years ago. So it's a pretty nice honor. And I keep hearing Abby's going to join us in about 6 years now. She'll be joining us. So Rafael, come on up, get yours. He's going to be going to Hoover, and he too is on the football team. I think there's a trend this year. and we're honored and amazed at his charm and just his great demeanor and leadership skills that we've seen. His cousin, who lives behind him, Giovanni Martinez, who is probably the biggest freshman on the football team. I would probably vote for Hoover this year, sorry, but I'm telling you, he's a gentle giant. He's an absolute gentleman. He's a great role model for his younger brothers, the twins, Geraldi and Jesse, who are in the audience. They're staying with us because they're also in our boxing program, so it's kind of a nice little thing. So Giovanni, let me get you this. There you go. Okay. One of the other nice things besides siblings that we get is friends. A few years ago, actually, it's been about, April 2006, Raphael convinced me to bring his mop-headed friend in. So we've had Osvaldo with our program for 4 years, and I'm telling you, this kid, he's just dynamite. He's got passion and artistry, and he's just going to go to Hoover High and just knock it out. It's just going to be great to have you over there. I'm going to miss the leadership of all of them. When we were camping, he really stepped up when the little ones were making noise at night. It was really nice. So it's nice to see those qualities come out in all of them. Isabel Corona is another one of our wonderful, we call her Galleria Americana. What else do we call you? Hollywood. She is just a beam when she walks in. Her older sister Rosa, again, a totally different personality, but she's also a police explorer with us, and they live right down the street from where we meet Star. And talk about family support. They've really been supportive of everything we've done, and she's just a blessing. So there you go, ma'am. Okay, we've got Miss Rhonda, who's one of my other shining stars. She started in 06. She's 14. This young lady, tell you about somebody who's just grown and blossomed and just top notch. She's going to be on the cheer squad, and times are tight. We all know that. She asked me at the beginning of the year if she could go to the GYA and get a job, so she could pay for all of her own stuff. So we got her a job, and she's still working, right? And not office stuff, not dainty stuff. Brush clearance, okay? So that's our young lady, our lovely Rhonda, who just got back from New York a few months ago on a school trip, which was just amazing, and we're very happy to help contribute to get that done. Thank you, ma'am. And last but absolutely not least, our straight A student started in 04, and she's also going to be in the Glendale High. She's going to Hoover, she's going to Glendale, and they're going to be each on the cheer squad. Exceptional at everything she does. She was the top shooter, top archery, top fencer, really good at shoveling when we were over at the horse pens at the camp. Miss Nicole Villalobos is just an absolute shining star and example in our community, and she's going to be a great leader very, very soon. And I'm honored and pleasure to know all of these young ladies and gentlemen. We wouldn't exist without donations. As everybody knows, the Glendale Board of Realtors is our primary function. They pay for most of what we do. Nestle's a huge contributor of food and supplies and just amazing things that they do for us. Our local BJ's donated our meal tonight. Our local restaurants, Honey Baked Hams donates our Christmas stuffed iced chicken. KJ's, Whole Foods does a lot for Christmas. Our kids owe a lot to this community, and every single one of them are going to pay back. So I appreciate all your time and grace to come and do this little commendation for them tonight.
Well, I want to thank you very much, Officer Shine. It's obvious that you very much enjoy your job and your extended family. You've been at it for quite a few years, and I know other members of the police department have also contributed their time and energies. You obviously have our support and the rest of the city staff. And so while there's any comments from the council members, while they're doing that, I'm going to give you some pins, city pins. Then I see a lot of brothers and sisters here, so we'll make sure that they...
these are the rest of these are the going-on ones. They're the current star students.
That they get some pins to get them motivated.
That's
great.
If there's
any comments?
Well, I have a comment. I think we should give them a round of applause.
All I can say is Hoover High School's a good school, but I went to Glendale High. So.
Well, they have great cheer squads at Hoover.
Yeah, I noticed.
We got all our stories.
They're going to have a 70th birthday party. Class of 57 this year.
Yes, wow.
Obviously, we have a lot of family members in the audience, so we'll go take pictures and let y'all carry on with your meeting. But we really appreciate the time that you've graced them with, as I said. They all will go to college, and these commendations will be great in their packet when they get a reference letter from me. So thank you for that.
Very much.
Thank you, sir. Very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, please.
Next, at item number 4 on the agenda is City Council and staff comments.
City Council comments, Ms. Friedman.
This Sunday, I was very happy to attend an event held by the Glendale Historical Society. It was at Brand Park, and it was a screening of a film called Crime Wave, which was shot in 1954 here in Glendale. And before the screening, which was outdoors at dusk, there was a wonderful display. The Glendale Police Department donated a bunch of historical police photographs. So there were boards showing different parts of Glendale history and relating to law and order. And there were tours of the doctor's house, the historic doctor's house. And it was a really, really wonderful event, and it was very well attended. A lot of people showed up, and people had blankets and picnic baskets, and it was just great. And I hope that it's the first of many other events that they do of this type. It was a wonderful community event, a beautiful location, a really interesting movie shot in Glendale. It was really wonderful to see the streets of Glendale in 1954 with the red car, old trolley line zipping up and down Brand Boulevard, and to see how far we've come as a city. So kudos to the Glendale Historic Society, the police department for their help, and to the community for attending.
Mr. Weaver.
As you know, I usually don't like to talk about what events and stuff I go to. That's just my preference. But this Sunday, my boss was at home with the kids. Made me do a command performance at Glendale High School. The Professional Basketball Association of the Philippines, what they call the heroes and the legends, they're the professionals that play basketball in the Philippines, retired. And they tour around to raise money. They're a non-profit. They raise money for scholarships, medical, dental, optometry missions, etc. So I was asked to come down and make a presentation, a little speech. I had a picture I have to put on. There I am standing next to that Filipino guy. Could have killed me if he wanted to, I guess. There was only one there who was shorter than I was. And boy, they can play. One of the gentlemen, he really was interesting. His name was Alan Triggerman Kadik. In one game, he scored 79 points. And in this exhibition of the two split up, he was standing outside lefty, shooting 3 points, not even touching the rim, one right after another. Half of them, I guess, live in America now, and the other half still live in the Philippines. So they make a tour from Canada down through here to raise money. So it was a totally different experience, and I said that, told my wife I would mention it here tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Dreeman.
Well, I don't have any travels to report, but I do want to ask Mr. Mayor for clarification, perhaps from the city attorney, related to the item that Mr. Taktalian mentioned, the upcoming reappointment of our boards and commissions. You just get a timeline on that, because we also have these nomination slots that were mentioned by the city clerk. So,
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Draymond, what is anticipated by that is essentially the same procedure you utilized in reconstituting the design review boards. Next week, we will be bringing you an ordinance for introduction, which will establish the 4-year terms. It will establish the fact that those terms are then coterminous with the council person who nominates the individual to a board or commission, and also a motion which by its terms, will essentially remove everyone on a Title II Board or Commission except the Design Review Board members, and that removal will become effective upon the appointment or reappointment of members to those boards. We anticipate, and we note in the ordinance, again, trying to anticipate the logistics of this, that the council will be making reappointments or appointments in October or November. And so we will be including in the ordinance that time frame for the new appointments. So even though you would, and I don't want to speculate on what you may do next week, but if you were to adopt the motion next week that removes members of the Board or Commission subject to reappointment, those individuals will continue to stay on until sometime in October or November when you begin to make new appointments or reappoint members to those boards and commissions.
Good.
Thanks for your time,
for the clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Other comments? Comments from the staff? Okay, next, please.
Next is consent items, including the minutes. Following a routine and may be acted upon by one motion. Any member of council or the audience requesting separate consideration may do so by making such request before a motion is proposed.
I'll move the consent calendar, but I will abstain on 5A. Since I was in
And I would
line.
actually like to pull 5B and 5D just to have a quick presentation from the city auditor and the police chief or captain, just to kind of let the public know what's going on.
Well, I'll move A and C and abstain from A.
Second.
All right, roll call, please.
Council members Draymond,
Yes.
Friedman,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Weaver,
All right,
Mayor Quintero.
with the applicant.
Duly noted.
Could you read 5B into the record?
Be a city auditor regarding annual report of the City Audit Committee. B1 is a motion to accept and file the report.
Okay, if you could give the public an idea of what the city auditor does and the audit committee, that would be greatly appreciated.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mayor Quintero and members of council. The Audit Committee is an independent group that's been assigned by the City Council to oversee the audit activities, both the internal audit as well as the external audit activities of the city. And each one of these people are either people that work in the city or live in the city and have to have very high qualifications. Currently, we have people that are attorneys, certified public accountants, risk managers, and in higher education that sit on the audit committee. They have 4 meetings per year, and at the meetings they carry on various duties, including overseeing the external auditor and their activities, overseeing the external audit plan, reviewing the external auditor's report, as well as reviewing the internal auditor's reports, as well as the internal audit annual plan that's put together. In addition, there's briefings that are put on by various members of city management at the audit committee meetings on various number of topics, and the audit committee gets involved in each of these activities. It's quite an extensive group, and each year they put together an annual report which is presented to you this evening that basically goes through and details all the activities that they've been involved in.
Okay, any questions? All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I'll move 5B.
Second.
Roll call?
5B1.
Council members Draymond,
Yes.
Friedman,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Quintero.
Yes. Next, please.
At 5D is Chief of Police regarding Target Corporation's offer to provide a $50,000 grant for the initial purchase and installation of cameras in downtown Glendale to assist in launching the Safe City program. D1 is a resolution accepting the grant and designating the Glendale Police Department as the lead agency for the administration of the grant and authorizing the city manager to execute all necessary related documents. At D2 is a resolution appropriating $50,000.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, city staff. The chief has asked me to come and to share with you briefly about the Safe City program. In essence, it's a
We
partnership.
need your name for the record.
I'm sorry, I'm Lieutenant Gary Montecuello, and I work in our Community Services Bureau. And over the past year, I've been working with members of not only our community, but members of our target corporation who have provided funding for us, and they have offered a $50,000 seed money or grant money to start a public safety camera program for our downtown central business district. The concept here is to act as a force multiplier, to allow the police department to provide public safety in those public access areas, sidewalks, alleyways, etc. And the intent is to allow us to do both crime prevention and crime suppression. This particular program is designed to be self-funding, so it will not rely on any general fund monies to be able to renew this each year, but rather through partnerships with local community members and different corporations to, if we need to expand this particular program. And in particular, we have contacted a number of our local stakeholders, not only individual business owners in the downtown area, but also such organizations as the Chamber of Commerce, the Armenian Chamber of Commerce, the Americana Brand, the Glendale Galleria, the Downtown Glendale Merchants Association, who have endorsed the concept in order to make our city safer. We will institute controls to ensure that the public safety cameras will view those systems and those locations which are not private but rather publicly accessed areas. And in fact, we are modeling this after a number of other cities in our Southern California and state of California locale which have instituted different systems. The cameras themselves will be either fixed cameras or pan-tilt zoom, such that an individual could focus on those particular cameras, and we are working closely with our IT department to develop and to assess the appropriate networking, whether it's through our city fiber or through some other type of mesh network system. And the hope is that we make our city safer, and that through the installation of these cameras, specifically to start in a pilot area with a downtown area, that we can ensure and continue to ensure the safety of the individual stakeholders, residents, business owners, and those other individuals who would work, live, and visit our city. And that's the essence of this program.
Okay, thank you very much. The motion?
Mr. Mayor, move 5D 1 and 2.
Roll call.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Council members Raymond?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Najarian?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Mayor Quintero?
Yes. Next, please.
Next is oral communications, or would-be oral communications.
Okay, for the presentation segment, I have one card. Colin Bogart.
Mayor Quintero, council members, city staff, good evening. My name is Colin Bogart. I work for the LA County Bicycle Coalition in partnership with the City of Glendale on the Place Grant Safe and Healthy Streets project. And I do have one slide to show you this evening. I'm here tonight to announce that we are looking for volunteers. As part of the Safe and Healthy Streets plan, we are going to be conducting a formal pedestrian and bicyclist count. This will be a count to establish essentially the number of people walking and biking in Glendale and determining where they're doing this. We intend to position volunteers at various locations throughout the city where they will essentially stand or sit at that location and count the pedestrians and cyclists as they go by during a 2-hour window. We're doing this count on 2 dates. The first one will be Wednesday, September 16th. We're doing a morning commute time from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and an afternoon commute time from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. And then we're also going to be doing counts on Saturday, September 19th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. We're anticipating approximately 75 shifts over the course of those 2 days. So I'm looking for roughly 75 volunteers potentially for this project. And if people are interested in volunteering, they can contact me, Colin Bogart, either by email at colin@la-bike.org, or they can call 818-334-9731. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Mr. Najarian.
Colin, when are you going to come and teach us how to get started or get reacquainted with bicycling and the equipment and the best clothing and times to bike and places to bike and, come on.
Out of balance on a two-wheeler,
Okay. How would you?
Some training wheels.
I'd like you to maybe perhaps agendize.
Okay.
Well, we'd like to agendize, if you're willing, just a basic. We keep talking about the great things you're doing, and obviously we're encouraged bicycling, but some of us haven't biked for many decades and have a little bit of questions as to what type of bike do I need, what type of shoes, shorts, do I need the fancy, equipment, the padded shorts, and the whole thing. Where's a good place to start biking if, to just sort of get acquainted and get our sea legs, our bike legs, so to speak.
As I recall, you wanted me to coordinate that with the city manager the last time we spoke about it. Is that how you would like me to go about having it agendized?
Yes, we'd like to see him on a bicycle. We want a really activist manager, and this will help him to.
Okay.
I would just
Raymond.
respond to my colleague, Mr. Najarian, and tell him one thing I can assure you, Mr. Najarian, is take the streamers off the end of the handlebars. They don't do that
about
anymore.
the playing cards and the spokes?
Playing card and the spokes.
So whenever, I know you've got a full, agenda of your own through the Bicycle Coalition, but I think it'd be a very good how-to to introduce us as well as our viewers
Okay.
how to get started and get going on the bikes.
Be happy to do that.
And why don't you give the phone number one more time for the
Sure.
volunteers?
The phone number for volunteers, again, it's September 16th and September 19th, a Wednesday and a Saturday. We're looking for people who can do one shift or all three if they can. The phone number is 818-334-9731, or they can email me at Colin, COLIN, at la-bike.org.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work. Next, please.
Item 7, under adoptions of ordinances at 7A, is an ordinance amending Glendale Municipal Code Section 1.10.030 related to the post-election contributions and local election campaigns. This was offered on August 18, 2009 by Councilmember Weaver.
Mayor, may I ask Mr. Howard to clarify what we're doing here, because some people have the wrong impression of what we're doing?
Right. Okay, thank you. Mr. Howard.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Last week I presented to you what I'll consider to be a small amendment to the campaign finance campaign reform or campaign finance ordinance that you had adopted many months ago. That change extended, or would extend if adopted tonight, the date for, it does two things. It extends the date for fundraising to pay off debts from August 31st to November 1st. And it also includes not only the ability to fundraise to pay off debts, but also to reach, if desired, the threshold for what some refer to as an office holder account up to $10,000. The ordinance as it existed, as it currently exists now, allows for contributions and fundraising to, and allows you to raise funds by way of contributions to include excess funds over and above any campaign expenditures, including debt, up to $10,000. So that does not change. Neither does the $1,000 per candidate limit or $1,000 contribution per person limit change as well. The only changes are that under the ordinance as it currently exists, candidates who either were not aggressive, were not savvy, or did not handle their campaign fundraising in such a way as to amass large amounts of money on the front end are not precluded now under the proposed ordinance from attempting to raise funds to both pay off debt and have some money in an office holder account up to the maximum of $10,000 limit. That's all the change does, other than move the date from August 31st in this one circumstance because of the timing to November 1st. We will be back to you in a number of months with a report on office holder accounts generally, what other cities do, what the law, what the limitations are, what the law allows, and also with including going back or sunsetting, if you will, the November 1st provision back to August 31st. So the changes essentially are somewhat insubstantial in the grand scheme of the existing ordinance.
Okay, and to be clear, that would be 10,000 over a 4-year period, meaning you would raise the 10,000 and you would be precluded from raising any other monies over a 4-year period. At the end of the 4-year period, you could not transfer any of that money over into a future campaign. Is that correct?
That is correct. In fact, there are a number of limitations. The way the ordinance was drafted initially, and again, what does not change with this amendment, is the types of things that those funds can be used for. Those are controlled by state law, which we reference in the ordinance. Political, legislative, or governmental purposes. One of the prohibitions under state law is that you cannot use those funds for your future campaign. So the funds can be used, you can transfer them to another candidate, for example, if you'd like. You can use them for legitimate political, governmental, or legislative purposes, attending certain seminars, doing a number of things, and they are essentially laid out not only in the government code, but in dozens and dozens of FPPC opinions that have been issued over the years. So there are, I would describe it as being some substantial limitations on the ability to use those funds. Some may think you can use the money for anything. Not so. There are limits.
Okay, are there any comments from, I have 2 speaker cards?
With that understanding, then
Okay, yeah, I have 2 speaker cards. First speaker is Chris Carson, followed by David Fortune.
Mayor Quintero, members of the council, I'm Chris Carson, co-president of the League of Women Voters of Glendale Burbank, and we're very proud to be celebrating our 70th birthday here, and soon to be the League to be celebrating its 90th birthday, born out of the fight for women's rights and good government. We are dismayed at this ordinance. When the original campaign finance ordinance was introduced, there was extensive research offered to the public by the city attorney's office. There was widespread opportunity for public comment in the press, at council meetings. The League presented a forum where various points of view were given to the public and questions were asked. Only after all this transpired was the ordinance passed. It was really, from the League's perspective, a model of how you do this kind of thing. The ordinance, the topic of the ordinance here tonight was not part of the original ordinance. There was never any discussion. There has been no research presented for the public to look at, no opportunity for the public to ask questions, no discussion. In the 90-year history of the League, we have learned that there is very little insubstantial, non-essential proceedings, and we are deeply dismayed at the rush here. We would request that if it is that insubstantial, that it could stand some more time for public discussion and comment and consideration before the council goes forward. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
may I ask what portion of it is a major concern to you?
It's the process. You're proposing a change to an ordinance that has just very recently been enacted. You had a model for doing it right the first time. This is the first time we heard the city attorney talk about what the background was. There was nothing for us to, or anyone else, to look at in terms of what you wanted, what it should do. There has been no opportunity for the public to comment other than some letters to the editor, individual emails to council. No public discussion at all. We really believe that the council set some very high standards that we applauded. And we think you need to adhere to these standards. You need a very thorough, open, and transparent process for any change to this ordinance.
Thank you.
David Fortune.
Good evening. My name is David A. Fortune. Pardon me. I'm a longtime resident and a businessman in the community. And I will echo what the representative from the League of Women Voters said, and with a few thoughts and history. For several months last year, the previous council discussed and finally passed a campaign finance reform policy. It took some time to pass and left two of the present council members, as a matter of fact, with a huge war chest and considerable advantage over other candidates in the race, if you recall. Someone once asked me why anyone would pay $100,000 or more to land a part-time job. I didn't have an answer to that. Perhaps you gentlemen and lady do. But at any rate, let me set the record straight. Of the top three candidates elected in the last election, it didn't take over $100,000. It did for two of them. But for the other ones, it only took $65,000. So it takes a lot of money to run for the city council, and that was the purpose of campaign reform law. Now we're here tonight to consider a modification. Some people have said a backdoor to the campaign finance reform limits to allow council members to raise up to $10,000 to pay for certain expenses. And that seemed to be poo-pawed a little bit. There was more emphasis on something else. I don't know what these expenses are. I don't know if anybody does. For instance, does it apply to tickets for the SC or UCLA game? Perhaps not. Occidental? Well, I could go for that, maybe. Or certainly Glendale College. But at any rate, we don't know what these expenditures are. I've heard that they're civic expenditures. Well, let's define these things. And I'm glad to hear the figure of $10,000. I had heard that, and I thought that was on an annual basis, so I broke down some figures. If it is on an annual basis, $10,000 a year is $833.33 a month, or $192.31 a week. Since on a 4-year basis, divide that by 4, and you get whatever that is. Now let me shift gears for a moment and consider today's headlines. Unemployment rate around 10%. Vacancy rate, commercial property in Glendale, 20%. Foreclosures and first-time unemployment filers on the rise. Many citizens are in danger of losing their jobs and their homes. Police and fire employees are let go. Loss of health insurance by many citizens. I'm sure many of these people that I've alluded to above could use that $192.31 and divide by 4, about $50 a week, to go to the movies, or to go to dinner, or even to take in a ball game. And perhaps a request like this is justified, but before consider it, we should know what the job of a member of the city council entails. I've heard it's a part-time job. And what is the compensation that you gentlemen and lady are entitled to, including fringe benefits, and then what amount of money is spent on these various civic activities that are under discussion. In short, this is ill-timed, ill-advised, and the case has not been made. I urge you to vote against this ordinance. Thank you very much.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Hi. First of all, thank you for coming tonight. I have a question just because I'm a little confused. So is it the current ordinance, the one that was passed, what was it, in last July, that you're objecting to? Because that ordinance is the ordinance that allows $10,000 of campaign money to be retained. In other words, the ordinance that the League of Women Voters thinks is a model, that's the ordinance that allows $10,000 of campaign funds to be retained after the election and used over the next 4 years for these various purposes. So are you objecting to that ordinance?
Let me answer that question. Number one, if that is in the ordinance, I heard the city attorney, and the city attorney says it is, but I also heard the city attorney say it will allow certain members of the council who were not aggressive enough to raise additional funds. $100,000, $130,000, that wasn't aggressive enough?
The reason I was asking is just because there seems to be a lot of confusion over what we're proposing, and I will take some credit for some of that confusion, and I apologize. The current ordinance does allow for $10,000. Well, I'll let the city attorney, maybe we need to clarify this a little more, because it seems like there's still some confusion. So I just wanted to, the reason I asked you is, as I'm not trying to argue, was trying to understand whether it's the change in the ordinance you're objecting to, or the ordinance that the League of Women Voters thinks is a model. But it sounds like that's what you're objecting to, the current ordinance.
Let me answer your question. Number one, I was in favor of a $250 limit, and that was only passed by one vote, as a matter of fact, to the $1,000 limit, as my memory is correct. If it is in the ordinance, I might not agree with it, but I don't know that we can change it. What I do want to know is, and I think the public deserves to know, what the city council has paid for meetings, all their meetings, what fringe benefits are, what is the car allowance, what other fringe benefits do they get, and then in the light of that, let's consider. It sounds to me like we're expanding this 10,000. No, perhaps not. Maybe I misunderstand that. But at least I think that at this time I'm asking that we put forth to the public how much money the city council makes, and then how much is expended on these, or how much was expended over the past years on these expenditures. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Drain.
Wow. Well, Ms. Friedman, you ask a great question. I'm going to try to divide my comments between Ms. Carson's comments and Mr. Fortune's comments, because they're really not the same, and they're dealing with different issues. Let me start with Mr. Fortune. Mr. Fortune, I, with all due respect, and I know you're a bright man. We've spoken many times face-to-face individually over the years. So I know you're a smart man, but I think you don't have the facts on this particular one. You say you just learned that it was over a 4-year period, but you're rattling off all of these numbers calculated on a 1-year period, even though you just stood here and heard that that isn't accurate. Bottom line is, you said you supported the ordinance that the League of Women Voters supported, and what they supported, and I was here. I was one of the people that ran on the issue of campaign reform. I'm one of 2 council members that sat up here that said we would be happy to vote for that $250 limit that you mentioned. The other was Councilmember Najarian, who raised the challenge, and I was the only other one that agreed to that. But the bottom line is, this $10,000 limit is in that ordinance that you say you support. Right now, the issue, as I see it, is a very limited issue. It is simply what you can use that $10,000 for, and how long do you have to raise those funds? How long is it allowed in the current ordinance after the election? Okay? $10,000 is allowed. And when that was discussed on this council, some of us, I was one of them, said, well, it should be a $5,000 cap, not a $10,000 cap. The reason that I voted to allow it to become a $10,000 cap, and I think I wasn't the only one up here, is because I assumed that the uses for that $10,000 were the approved uses that the state agency, the FPPC, allows for the legal expenditures of that $10,000. Those legal allowable uses are the very things we're talking about up here: retiring campaign debt, campaign expenses, and making charitable donations, if you wish, to organizations, or to other issues that have to do with operating as an elected official. Some of those things include making donations to charitable groups. You've seen council members do that all the time. They include paying for things like telephone in an office while you're running a campaign, or telephone in an office while you are a sitting council member, postage, and other things that are specifically related to operating your campaign or operating as an elected official, that are set out in parameters by the FPPC, not by us. I was agreeable to allowing that cap to be brought in at $10,000 rather than $5,000, because I thought it was all-inclusive, just like the FPPC allows. I was as surprised as Councilmember Friedman to find out in Glendale what we had passed was something else. It said it could be used only to retire campaign debt. And that to me is the sliver of a distinction that is a loophole that allows something I don't want. It allows candidates to come in and say, I'm going to lend myself money rather than lay out funds and then bank the money later. I am, the city attorney is making faces, so I will put a pause there and turn to Mr. Howard. Clarify away.
No, Mr. Mayor, members of council, I think Councilmember Driven, I would say that 99.9% of what you said was absolutely 100% correct.
Well, good. I'm better averages than usual.
And I think we want to make sure that we clarify that what we're really talking about is one change. You noted, for example, that it's...
Well, I'll beg to differ with you on that, but go right ahead.
It's what it can be used for. The change is what you can raise money for post-election.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Well, we are speaking post-election.
Right. And I want to make sure the public understands that that's really what we're talking about is post-election campaign fundraising.
But it is really more than one thing. It has to do with, we're also talking about extending some time here, and that's another issue.
Correct.
But I'll come to that in a moment. So many of us, at least I was, and I suspect I have colleagues up here who were under the same impression, that these funds could be used for the allowable purposes that the FPP sets out. Okay? That's what I want to vote on. Okay? That's what I thought. That's what I still think. And if I had understood the distinction then, I would have articulated my request for some clarity at that time. Second thing, the time extension that I'm willing to support here has to do with one thing and one thing only, and that is to stop the clock that will run out for those candidates in the last election, successful candidates in the last election, that would end, I guess, the end of this month, so that we can have this public debate. That's it. I'm not interested in making this a permanent thing. No one here is talking about that. That's not what is proposed. It is set under the current ordinance to end of August. While we're having a public debate on the issue, I don't think that those people should be, those candidates, now council members, should be penalized. I'm not interested in supporting anything beyond that, and that's not what this ordinance is offering. So there is some confusion. Those are the limited areas that I'm willing to support, plus this, which I would like to address to Ms. Carson, because I understand your point, and there was significant debate. In terms of what is the rush, I don't feel that there is a rush. I do believe we should have the amount of debate, public debate, agendized in a way that is necessary to cover this topic. But it is a very limited change that we're talking about. It has to do with making what we passed in 2008, July of 2008, compatible with the FPPC. That's it.
Okay, I will follow up with your comments. All we're doing tonight is to extend the date to November from the end of August and clarifying the language that would describe the excess funds and how they can be spent. But in fact, all of these expenditures, every last one, will be monitored by the FPPC. It will all be put on our website here at the City of Glendale. It's a Fair Political Practices Commission that sets the guidelines on the expenditures. So, I mean, basically, very little, if anything, is changing other than on this ordinance, other than the date. We're not expanding the ordinance. So that's the way I see it. And I also was not aware. I assumed that when we passed the original ordinance, it did include the type of expenditures that were covered under the FPPC. Mr. Drain.
I'm sorry, Councilman Jordan, I have your hand up. I wanted to mention one other thing. In terms of the reporting, it's the same reporting that goes on now. It's available to you. It is our reporting of our 460 forms. It's available on the Internet. And you can go to the city clerk's website and look at it any day of the week. So that was one thing I neglected to mention. And the other thing I neglected to mention was what the council makes, you asked. What is their salary and what are these civic expenses? You talk about tickets to the USC game. And I know you're joking, but...
Yeah, I haven't got any.
I'll tell you exactly what the kind of things are. And I assume that my experience is pretty much the same as my colleagues here. In a 24-hour period, I get about 200 to 300 emails. Part of that is because I respond to emails, and when the public starts to get the idea they can get a quick response from an elected official via email, the number of emails increases. In addition to that, there are organizations in this city, charitable organizations, some of which you probably all belong to or participate in, that ask for their elected officials to attend. They are fundraisers for those organizations. They are events for Path Achieve. They're events for Glendale Beautiful. They're events for, the list just goes on and on and on. And there are literally, and I'm not kidding you, hundreds and hundreds of them that come in. And they all come with a price tag. For us to attend those events, we have to pay to get in, just like any other member of the public does, unless it is specifically comped, and those are rather rare. So it means $50, $100, $150 to walk in the door so that we can help raise the visibility of that organization's activities. And it is a little off-putting, I'll tell you, Mr. Fortune, it's a little off-putting to walk up to the organizer of a public event in our city and say, can you possibly comp me because I can't afford to go to the 67th event this year? Because they all come with a price tag. One of the things about the campaign reform was that we have limited the amount of money that candidates and then council members can amass. If you look at your my 460 form, you'll see there's just in excess right now of about $13,000 in there. That won't be in there when I run for re-election, if I run for re-election. That won't be there. That is my personal thing. I intend to eliminate those funds because I ran on the issue of campaign reform. If I run for re-election, it will be starting from zero. That's what I plan to do. That's just me. But you can check that. You can monitor that as we go. But in any case, those are the kind of expenses there are. Things that we're expected to go to, events where the mayor assigns to us responsibilities for Economic Alliance or the Verdugo Arroyo Subcommittee, or as representatives to agencies that we as a municipality in LA County, we go, and just like our sister cities all over the county, we have to attend. They all cost money, and there is no source of revenue for us to spend on this other than personal bank accounts or these funds. That's what it's about.
Mr. Weaver, you were next.
Well, no, I think the only thing we talked about clarifying in writing that what kind of events, memorialize it in some way, as I recall. When we're going to say you can donate to nonprofit events, you can do this and this. Is that true, Mr. Howard, that we're going to...
Mr. Mayor, members of council,
time to come.
There's actually a memorandum that an attorney-client privilege memorandum that I put together indicating, by way of example, a number of FPPC opinions and a number of provisions outlined in the government code which specifically spell out the type of events. And as I indicated earlier, there are dozens upon dozens of FPPC opinions on what is considered to be either related or a directly related political, legislative, or governmental purpose for the use of excess campaign funds.
And there's been countless times I've come to you and asked the question, can I go to this or that? Is it legal for me to or not?
And I would be happy to provide you with, you or any other council member with advice, and certainly the FPPC would as well.
I didn't see this as a major thing at this time. The temporary, that sunset on the November date, so I really didn't see anything that demanded noticing and bringing all the public back into it again. Besides, we didn't have the time with August concluding in a week or so. I think Mr. Najarian had a...
Okay, Mr. Najarian, and then the city clerk wants to comment.
Well, we, this council took a bold step. When was it, Mr. Howard? July?
July of 2008.
Of 2008. To make the campaign finance reform what it was. I fairly well understood what the holdover account was consisting of and what it meant. I think it's a bad idea to change this at this time. And the fact is that money that a candidate obtains after he or she is elected is some of the dirtiest money that you can receive. It's dirty because everyone who has something that may come before the council in the next 4 years, everyone who perhaps underestimated a particular candidate's chances at succeeding in an election is by God going to be there at your party after the election, and they're going to be giving you money. And the money isn't the same type of money that you get during the campaign, where you've got huge expenses and you've got unknown expenses that accrue with your staff, with advertisements, with other sort of campaign outreach that you do. This is money that you're going to be able to put in your office holder's account and do wonderful things with. Glendale has talked about putting streetcars, Mr. Howard. I'm going to go to New Orleans and ride their streetcars, maybe around Mardi Gras, and have a good old time. It's a legislative purpose, Mr. Howard, and I'll be surprised if there's any prohibition against that. We're talking about architecture. It's Spanish, it's craftsmen. Mr. Quintero said, well, in Spain they have, what type of, we were talking about it? Stone. Well, I want to find out for myself. I'm going to go to Spain, the north of Spain, the wonderful Basque region, and get a education on Spanish architecture, because we have so much Spanish architecture in Glendale, and we sit as the deciding body on approving or disapproving certain architectural styles. Legislative purpose, Mr. Howard. We've got wonderful vineyards growing up at the Duke-Majan Wilderness Park, and there's been some talk about expanding that. And what better place to get an education on vineyards than the south of France? Or perhaps not the south of France, it shows my ignorance already, the wine-growing regions of France. Every one of those expenditures is legal. It has a legislative purpose. I want to go to the water quality conference in Hawaii. Great. I've got a fund right here that my good friends who were just a little bit late in giving their donations to me before the election saw fit to do so after the election. And I'm going to go and have a good time in Hawaii and go to that one class and that one lecture. And if I get a suntan while I'm doing it, well, I didn't put enough sunscreen on. We have to take the money out of these elections. We have to do that. If we want to say that this money can be used for supporting 501c3s, then by God, I'm ready to vote for that if we make that amendment and restrict it to such measures. But the vague and general and broad restrictions of the State Political Reform Act and the Government Code leave the door wide open for too much dirty money and too much unrestrained spending on the part of the candidates. That's what we want to get out. And who's going to give to the candidates? It's going to be people that have projects coming up. It's going to be that union that didn't think you were going to win, but it was just a mistake. You know, they knew you were going to win all the time. They didn't want to taint you with their donation, and here's your donation. We have to take this out of the elections in Glendale. I've been there, folks. It's dirty. And even if the candidate doesn't have that commitment or that the intent to give anything as a quid pro quo, certainly those people who are out there writing those checks to the candidates have that expectation, and that's just as wrong as the candidate having that expectation and acting on those donations. 501c3s, I'm ready to do it. I'm ready to permit any money gained to be used in that manner. But I think that the organizations need to realize that we have taken campaign contribution limits seriously. We don't have those huge funds that previously existed, and that they should be more than willing to comp us to come in. But in any event, if we have a few $1,000s for 501c3 organizations, and let's expand it, doesn't have to be in the city of Glendale, it can be in the region or nationally, I'm fine with that. But it's just too broad, and getting the money after the election is just too dirty to go forward. I think we're taking a big step backward if we open the door in this regard. There is a dark side. We heard about great, very good, virtuous, and good reasons to have this account. But believe me, there is a dark side. Let's stay away from the dark side.
Mr. Mayor?
Before I go to Mr. Kasakian, let me ask you a question. Do you have a ballpark figure as how much you have in your account?
Mr. Nigerian? $1,100. And I think the candidate who wants to play the risk and maybe not spend all his money at the election and is so confident, and I don't think any candidate, by the way, is so confident that he or she is going to get elected, and hold $10,000 and not spend it. In the event they get elected, they'll have this little account. Well, I think we should apply the same restrictions, that it should be a 501c3. We should make it even tighter than what's out there. And we've done that as a council. And when we did the absentee voter, we surpassed and made absentee voting applications more strict than the current state law. So this is a step that we have taken before in a different type of issue.
Mr. Kasakian?
Mr. Mayor and Council, I haven't really spoken out on this issue previously. I haven't really expressed my opinion. But as someone who's affected by this legislation that you're considering, I want to comment. First of all, I know both the speakers from the public who came today and spoke. I know them well. I know that their intentions are pure and honest, and their only concern is for good governance. I've had many conversations with them. I consider them both friends, and we will continue to speak on these issues. And I understand their concern as well, because as was mentioned, today's headlines in the news, whether it's a Senate seat up for consideration in the great state of Illinois, or perhaps issues that hit closer to home here in Southern California and some other cities I probably shouldn't mention. The seeds of cynicism, I think, are sown into the minds of the public, and we, as even though we may be elected officials, as citizens and voters ourselves, are not immune to that cynicism when we see it. But there was an issue brought up as to what this money will be used for. And allow me to give you an example. I don't know what type of favors any particular individual can curry with the city clerk when make a contribution to their campaign. Definitely know that developers can't rely on my vote for anything. However, I did have a campaign account. I raised money for it in anticipating a possible challenge. And when I didn't, I used that money for my betterment to be a better public official. I recently applied to a program. Some of our audience members and others at home may have noticed that I was not here for 3 weeks. I was accepted to a program at Harvard University at the Kennedy School of Government for state and local officials. The cost of this program was approximately $11,000. It was an excellent program. I considered myself fortunate to be there with 69 other individuals, half of whom were elected officials, and others who were fire chiefs, sheriffs, and other public servants from municipalities and agencies throughout the country. And for 3 weeks we learned about how to be better public servants, how government works, why sometimes it doesn't work, and what we're able to do to make it work in the best interest of the public whenever we so can. I paid for this program with the counsel of our city attorney and our legal department through campaign funds. And true, I couldn't think of a better place to study. I know about studying about wine in the various grape growing regions of France, but I couldn't think of a better place to go study about democracy than Boston, Massachusetts, then Harvard University. I did happen to be there on July 4th. To watch the fireworks and the Boston Pops. The program started on July 5th, so I took the liberty of landing there 12 hours earlier. And Now I have campaign debt because I did loan myself some money to close the gap of that amount. There are multiple programs out there. Our resources are limited. We've cut our own department budgets for travel, for education, for conferences, for programs of which there's a myriad out there which will make us better public servants. I know that the focus has been on cocktail hours, fundraisers for charities, but I ask you, Mr. Mayor and Council, to not forget the educational component of this, the certificational component of this. There's another certification seminar that I will have to attend in December to complete my certification as a municipal clerk, which will cost $1,200 just for the academic portion of it. And for this, I would ask you to take this into particular consideration, for the audience to consider this as well as something that we have to do that makes us better public servants and allows us to serve our city better.
Thank you, Mr. Kasakian. Mr. Weaver.
Well, I don't know. I guess everybody's confessing and everything. I guess I have a couple thousand in my account. I can't recall ever having used the account for anything. If I've gone to an event and my wife and we paid out of our own personal account. It hasn't came out of that campaign account. I've always wanted to keep a little nest egg in there. $1,000 or 2,000. 2,000, I think, is the most I've ever had left over. Tried to budget my expenditures on campaigning. I've campaigned 6 times now. I'm pretty good at it now. The number of events I've gone to has decreased. The economy. Most of events I get invited to 75, 100, 125, 200. That's per person. If you add your spouse in, that's a lot of money going out just to make an appearance, to make people happy that a council person's there. So I haven't done much. And if you want to stop people from using dirty money to go to all these places Mr. DeJarn's talking about, very simple. Let's lower the ceiling to 5,000 or 2,500. Let's see if you can get to France or Hawaii on that kind of money. We can certainly take care of the dirty money issue by cutting the 10,000 down. If you do go any of those places, you're going to go one time, and that'll eat up your 10,000 even. So we can do that if we wanted.
Well, once again, every dime that you spend has to be accounted for. And if you are crazy enough to take a trip that doesn't make any sense, every voter in this city and everyone else in the world will know exactly where you went and what it is that you did. And quite frankly, let's say in Mr. Najarian's case, he sits on the Metropolitan Transport Authority, the MTA. When he goes to conferences, it's the taxpayers that are paying for it. If there's a conference in Houston, Texas, Chicago, Illinois, or anywhere else in the world, the taxpayers pay for it. So there's no difference between the taxpayer paying for it or someone paying for it out of their political account. But you're absolutely going to be held responsible by the voters. I mean, you actually have to break down where it is that you go and what it is that you spend the money on. So, once again, this is a minor change that we're doing tonight. We're going to extend it for a few months, and nothing else changes. The terms don't change. Mr. Draymond.
Well, I think that there must be a special sub-course at the USC Law School in straw men. And they must specialize in the service of red herrings, because this is just nonsense. I don't know anyone on this council that has taken trips to the south of France to study wine. Well, we know it's not the south of France, and written it off on charged it off to their campaign account, nor to Hawaii to study geothermal, or to any of the other extreme examples that just don't exist here. And I take some exception to it. It isn't dirty money when the original ordinance was voted upon and we carved out those people who had to vote for that ordinance who were about to run for office. It wasn't dirty money when it was accepted just before the ordinance came into place so that we could bolster a campaign account to their advantage when no other candidate would be able to do that. It wasn't dirty money then, and it isn't dirty money now. By the way, and Mr. Weaver, you're quite right. It seems like it is the time for confessions. I forgot to mention, Mr. Fortune, it seems like I'm having a private conversation with you tonight. I forgot to mention, just as a personal preference, I don't use those funds for any of the things that were described, but I don't use them either to go to attend events, charitable or otherwise. I write that out of my own pocket. And that's just a personal preference. I believe that when candidates run for office and people make contributions to their campaigns, that it is for the purpose of getting yourself as a candidate elected and then maintaining an office, so to speak. But I don't know whether my colleague was implying that those people sitting on this council are engaged in the use of dirty money. I resent that highly. I'll consider it hyperbole. But that is just utter nonsense as far as I'm concerned. Maybe there are cases that my colleague is aware of where sitting council members have been doing that, in which case I believe he should come forward immediately and report that. But that is not this council member, for sure. So, anyway.
You want a motion, Mr. Mayor?
Well, how about a response? Mr. Draymond, I really take issue at what I see as a personal attack that you just made regarding my law school, USC. I think we were having, up to this point, a very professional discussion. My comments on the dangers of this never were directed at any particular council person up here. It is directed at what could be, and as legislators, we have to sit here, and we're not looking about the 5 people that we have here. We're looking about people that may be sitting here in 2 years, in 4 years, in 6 years, and 8 years. So please don't give me the personal attack. I'm not Bob Yusefian. I don't need that here. And we've dealt with each other in a very professional manner up to that point. I think my examples of the dangers of this were just that, examples of dangers. And I'm not saying that you went to the south of France, but what we're talking about is the intention of collecting money that isn't being used for campaign purposes. It's post-campaign. There's no campaign expenses in sight, and the restrictions of the Political Reform Act, of which I'm making reference to, are very broad, and we saw the former Speaker of the California Legislature, California Assembly, make such a trip, and I think he got through without so much as a hand slap for visiting the south of France and sampling the French wines, because, of course, we have a wine region in California. So.
Well, Mr. Najarian, I think you're familiar with the laws of slander, and when you say what you said, it can only apply to 4 people. I think that's a small enough group that it pretty well isolates.
Well, referring to what, Mr. Quintero? Well, no. You just don't throw out a charge of slander and then back off.
You went on for quite a few minutes describing all of these things that could take place.
What if I said, what if I went to New Orleans on Mardi Gras? What if I went to the south of France?
Yeah,
so don't throw the slander bomb at me here.
I think you were referring to the sitting members of the council when you were making.
No, there was no such inference intended, Mr. Quintero.
The bottom line is we're not dealing with legislative issues with the Speaker of the Assembly. We're dealing with the Glendale City Council. We all know that. And I take exception to what I believe, Mr. Najarian, was an extremely personal comment about your colleagues. The inference that we would do such a thing, and the comment that it is dirty money. Tell me, is Councilmember Friedman's fundraising to retire campaign debt or to use her funds for attend events she is expected by constituent groups to attend. Is that the use of dirty money?
In the campaign debt? No. Charitable organizations, I'm willing to adopt that amendment. Anything above that, I think there is an expectation on those that come to fundraising events after the official has been elected that there is going to be something in return, and it gives the impression of impropriety.
And I say, my answer to you, Mr. Najarian, is other than I disagree with you, I think it is a stretch, it is extreme, it is a straw man argument, and beyond that, I think it's insulting to call this dirty money. It was not dirty money prior to the election, was it?
Because you've got an election to run.
Would you like a motion?
It's not gravy. Before the election, you've got a multitude of expenses to make that you don't know are going to be due this week, due tomorrow, do more flyers, do more robocalls. But afterwards, you don't have those expenses. It's a different...
Do more fundraising just prior to the deadline? Come on, Mr. Najarian.
Ms. Friedman, then we'll go for the motion. Do you want to say something?
If they're finished.
Okay.
You want a motion?
I just wanted to clarify, give a little background as to why I opened up this whole can of worms in the first place. Yeah. The reason was because, as one of the first people to be going through this new ordinance, I discovered what I thought was a bit of a loophole and something that was unintended. I appreciate the League of Women Voters thinking that this is a model ordinance, but sometimes even very well-intentioned ordinances need to be tweaked, especially when they're complex and they deal with complex issues. And what I discovered was that because of the way the ordinance worked and because it allowed a candidate, successful or not, to raise money to retire campaign debt, and because you cannot restrict over a certain amount the amount that a candidate can contribute to their own campaign fund, it was very easy, and I'll tell any potential candidates out there that if this ordinance remains the same, here's all you have to do if you want to go through the next 4 years with some money, is to run up some debt, to collect money, and then to loan your own campaign money so that afterwards you can have a fundraiser to retire that debt to yourself using the money that you had banked to carry through to the next season. It's not illegal. You're not pocketing any money. It's a wash for yourself, but it allows you to use that debt. It allows you to bank money and then to have fundraisers after to retire debt, even if you have $10,000 sitting in the bank. That was the loophole I discovered. My attempt to bring this up was not to change necessarily what people are using that $10,000 for, but trying to make the process transparent so that if candidates were trying to use the accumulation of debt to bank money and pay off their debts with the new ordinance, that what would happen was we would have more transparency because you would see what the money was really being raised for. So it was that loophole that I originally had asked the city attorney to address, and it was his recommendation after reviewing the ordinance that it was this concept of debt that was confusing. My feeling is that if we're allowing people to continue to have $10,000 to use through, we're not changing that with this recommended change. Doesn't change that. You can still bank $10,000 and you can still use it for all of these purposes that are allowed by the FCC. Let's just do that and not set up this kind of procedural rigmarole that people can circumvent after the election. If we're going to allow them to carry $10,000 through, let them do that. Now, I understand that when people are sitting council members, to then go out and do fundraising looks like people that are, sort of pay for play. But I would contend that that's the same whether you're raising money to retire debt or for another purpose. Why, if you have $10,000 in legitimate debt that you ended up going out of pocket because you didn't have the money yourself and you went into debt to try to win an election, why is it any less dirty to then go to people and say, give me money to cover debt, or give me money for an office holder's account to operate? I don't see why that would be any different. Now, you can't just tell people if you go into debt, you're out of luck, we're not going to let you fundraise. I think that would be pretty cruel, considering that not everybody goes into an election with the same amount of resources as somebody else. So it's sort of this catch-22. You want to be fair, you want to have a level playing ground, but you want to keep the money out. So I understand that. And is it perfect? No. I don't think that any municipality has come up with the perfect campaign finance reform ordinance. If they had, it would have been adopted all over the country, but this is the kind of thing the federal government grapples with, every city grapples with, the state grapples with. I wish we had a model perfect ordinance. I think that there's loopholes. That's why I brought it up. I am not looking forward to going out and fundraising, I'll tell you. We're all confessing. My confession is I would rather clean your kitchen than ask you for money. And I swear that's the truth. During the campaign, people that were working with me, my friends who were helping me, kept saying, you know what, you've got to pick up the phone, and anyone who gave you $10, call them and ask for $100. Anyone who gave you $100, call them and ask them for $500. I never did it, not once. I bet there's not one person out there that got a phone call from me asking for money. When I would go to my meet and greets, I would forget to ask for money, and it wasn't really that I forgot, I just couldn't do it. I just found that so difficult to ask somebody for money. So it's not that I'm trying to change this, that I can go out and start raising huge amounts of money and flying off to the south of France, although I'd love to fly off to the south of France. That's not the goal. The goal is that, looking at this, I saw a loophole. I also found myself in the situation where I have zero in my campaign account and other people have money. I'm not sure that's fair. And I think that, I thought it was worth addressing it. So, I'm not sure. I think that $1,000, whether it's before or after the campaign, I think it's a lot of money. Would I support, if we were to go forward to lowering that amount and making it $100 or $200 limit per person? Maybe then you wouldn't have these charges of maybe the big developers are going to come in and give you huge amounts of money. Maybe that's the solution. Maybe that's a compromise we can live with. It's a compromise I could live with, or lowering that ceiling for everybody. Instead of saying you can keep 10,000, maybe it is 5,000. That's fine with me too. But I do think that we should have a level playing field where if one candidate goes into those next 4 years with $5,000, the other candidate should be allowed to do the same thing. I think that's fair. I think that we can't tell people you can't pay back debt or raise money to pay back debt. At the same time, if we allow that, we raise this potential loophole where people can bank money and raise money. So I'm not sure what the solution is. I'm open to ideas. I will say, in terms of the League of Women Voters, I agree that we need to have a public process with these, but I also believe that that's what we're doing here tonight. And I think that people have written letters, I've gotten emails, I've gotten phone calls. This probably won't be the end of it. Even if we adopt something tonight or don't adopt it, it can always be revisited. We do have a bit of a time constraint because the current ordinance says that, the current ordinance expires in about 3 days. So if we do nothing, we kind of lose our opportunity. And that's why we are trying to make this happen now. So I just wanted to give a little history, a little bit of my thoughts. And
Mr. Howard, we will be coming back in the next few months, so we're going to be further refining and discussing.
Yes, sir. Not only the issues I'm hearing, but specifically focused on this whole issue of office holder accounts, history of the office holder account, what a lot of other agencies do, what the limits are, what the regulations are, what the legal ramifications and limitations are, as well as other issues if you want to look at campaign contribution limits or even lowering the ceiling on excess funds. But all of those will be part of a report coming back to you in the next couple of months.
And it will be totally public, and the whole world can have their input to us so we can make a very informed decision. Mr. Mayor, with that, may I move 7A?
Okay, do I have a second?
Yes, second.
Okay.
Well, roll call.
Councilmember Draymond?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Najarian?
No.
Weaver?
Aye.
Mayor Quintero?
Yes. Next, please.
8 action items. 8A is General Manager of Glendale Water and Power regarding Glendale Water and Power Commission appeal procedures for appeals before GW Commission pursuant to GMC sections 13.08.14E, 13.08.140H, 13.44.500E, and or 13.44.500H. At A1 is a resolution adopting the appeal procedures to be implemented in accordance to GMC section 2.72.140.
Ms. Spears.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, we'll go to Glenn Steiger for a brief report.
Thank you. Mayor Quintero, members of the Glendale City Council. On July 18th of this year, City Council adopted Ordinance 566 4, which amends sections of the Glendale Municipal Code relating specifically to theft of utility services, electric and water. The amendments also defined a number of other issues relating to meter tampering, unauthorized use of theft of service, costs associated with recovery of items associated with theft of service, and specifically allows the GWP Commission to hear appeals from aggrieved customers. It also asks that the GWP Commission adopts procedures associated with that appeals process. We come before you tonight to adopt those procedures. The GWP Commission has recommended to the Council that these procedures be adopted.
Okay. Any questions?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Weaver?
Move 8A1.
Need a
Appeal
second?
ends with Water and Power Commission.
Does. Correct.
Yes. Not us.
Need a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Council members Draymond?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Najarian?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Mayor Quintero?
Yes. 8B is off the
Yes, thank you.
calendar.
8B has been taken off calendar. I could read it into the record for anyone in the audience who's here for 8B.
I don't have any cards.
Fine.
Down to C.
Then moving to 8C, City Manager regarding consideration of temporary contract extension with David Turch and Associates for professional federal strategic planning, legislative representation, intergovernmental liaison, and political analysis services. At C1 is motion authorizing extension of the contract for a 3-month period commencing September 1st, 2009, ending November 30th, 2009, in an amount not to exceed $22,000.
Ms. Spears?
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, I will go to John Tuchtalian, Assistant to the City Manager, for a brief discussion, if you would like.
Good evening, Mayor.
Would you like?
We had this discussion before.
Right.
We all
Well, I was under the assumption that we were going out for an RFP, but that Mr. Turch's
This is just an
company
interim.
would continue. No, but I thought they would continue in that.
It's a contract expiring.
Yeah, no, I know. So I'm for this. Let's go
Okay.
ahead and.
And
I
it
don't
is
need a
date
briefing.
certain, Mr. Mayor. It's November 30th, and we will be going out for an RFP.
So I'll move 8C1.
Second.
Roll call.
Council members Draymond?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Najarian?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Mayor Quintero?
Yes. Next, please.
At 8D is City Manager regarding request from Path Achieve Glendale for platinum sponsorship of their first annual dinner and a movie under the Stars fundraising event. At D1 is a motion purchasing a platinum sponsorship to support Path Achieve's dinner and a movie under the Stars fundraising event.
Do I have a motion?
Yeah, I can make a motion. I'll move 8D1.
And I need a second.
Achieve is very...
Okay, I do have 2 cards. If someone would like to sort of publicize the event, then
You don't want to kill the goose that laid the golden egg here, you know.
let the public know what you're planning.
Hi, good evening. I'm Natalie Profont Camuro, and Juan is here. I'm the Executive Director of Path Achieve Glendale, and I want to thank you, City Council members, for this opportunity to remind you and your audience about our upcoming event. And I think there was a slide. Oh, there we go. The Dinner and a Movie is our first signature event. It will be at the Americana brand. It'll be featuring Forrest Gump and Dinner by Katsuya. We also wanted to let folks know that if they wanted to buy advertising in the program, that is still available. And we are continuing to sell raffle tickets for the drawing of a BMW 128i Coupe that is donated by Pacific BMW. And the graphic, has additional information. What I wanted to also just call to folks' attention is if they want more information, they can go to our website at achieveglendale.org, call the number on the screen, 818-409-0506. That's for Pam. Or the next slide is our board. And then the last slide has additional information. You could email us at event@achieveglendale.org, or there's a second number, 409-3336, which is my number. So for anybody who is interested in advertising, we have another week or so before we close that out, and tickets will be available until September 7th. So again, thank you for consideration of the sponsorship, and thank you for your partnership as a funder for Path Achieve Glendale.
Mr. Weaver?
How much do the tickets cost?
The tickets, there's a general admission ticket for $100, which is for the dinner and a movie. And then we have VIP tickets, which include admittance to a VIP reception, which features the Elixir Trio and is hosted by Larry Zarian. And then the VIP ticket also includes a raffle ticket, and those are $300 apiece.
So the general admission, or like for a council person and his wife or husband, would be $200.
Yes, it would.
See, people? This is just one.
Okay, moving along.
Thank you.
Get back into that.
Just one.
Card, Rodney Kahn.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, City staff. My name is Rodney Kahn. I'm on the Board of Directors of Path Achieve Glendale. My colleague, Mr. Nick Lamb, who is our director, who is actually the chairman of our board, would be here this evening, but he's out of the country. But this is very, very important to him, along with the rest of the board members. A few weeks ago, we warned you that we were coming back, and I think Natalie has already given you some information as to what it is we're doing and why we're doing it. It's very important, and I'll conclude my remarks. It's very important to us as an organization that helps the city's homeless that we have your support. And it's not just in name, it's also financial. And the reason that's so important to us is when we go out to the community and when we fundraise and when we're trying to recruit for volunteers, it's very important to have the city behind us. It gives us credibility, and it also raises our visibility. We have a number of people that have volunteered to work on this event so far. We've done well in terms of selling tables. We need to step it up a little bit with the selling of the tickets for the raffles for the cars, also with some of the advertising. But we thank you for your consideration this evening and hope that many people will be coming to our event. Thank you.
Okay, do I have that's the
already
final
been-
card. Do you have a motion?
It's already been made, I thought.
Already made and seconded.
Roll call, please.
Council members Draymond?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Najarian?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Mayor Quintero.
Yes. Next, please.
At 8E is City Manager regarding request from the North Sarund Cultural Association seeking the city's co-sponsorship of the 11th Annual Armenian Independence Day Festival. At E1 is a motion to co-sponsor the Independence Day Festival.
Okay, I have one speaker card.
Two speakers.
Tarud Tavitian. Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Mayor.
You want to talk a little bit about the event and kind of the history of the event?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, City Council members, City staff. First of all, we would like to thank you for co-sponsoring our event last year. This will be the 11th year we are having this event. It's basically, the name says Armenian Independence Day Festival, but it's more of a cultural celebration. For the past 10 years, we have had several thousand people attend the ceremonies, and everything has passed very smoothly. Everyone has enjoyed that day, and there has been, tremendous acceptance by the community members. So we're doing the same thing this year also, and again, we look forward for an exciting day for people of all ages. And again, we thank you for co-sponsoring it last year.
Okay, thank you.
Question.
Yes, Najarian.
Sir Dertavitian, I had attended the event in years past. I had a pretty good time. It was nice that the community came together. And last year, the city also co-sponsored the event.
Yes.
Correct. Is there any reason why last year I was not permitted to give a hello to the audience during this event?
Well, basically, we had sent invitations, as we do every year, to city council members, and we have assigned a time for the official ceremonies, which is from 12 to 1. This year, we have changed it. It will be from 1 to 2. And again, we will be sending invitations. And and we would really appreciate if we get RSVPs replied also. The reason last year was that because, if I remember correctly, it was somewhere between 4 and 5 o'clock, which is towards the end of the day. And during that hour, it's basically we have a series of singers and coming on stage, and the people are dancing. And it was a bit awkward to stop everything for a speech. That was the main reason.
Well, it was rather upsetting to me. It wasn't 4 or 5 o'clock. It was right after church. It was on a Sunday. Armenians are obviously the first Christian nation. Many of us go to church. After church, I came to the event, not just by myself, but with my wife and my 2 kids. And we stood behind the stage for about 1 hour. And there were many acts that came and went. And I certainly made it clear to Stepan Gimian, I just want to say hello.
Yeah.
I didn't have a long speech. I probably couldn't speak that long in Armenian anyway. And it just was very, I didn't feel that it was proper for the city being a co-sponsor. In fact, I wasn't the only councilman who was not permitted to get up there to say hello.
Yeah.
I don't see that it was proper to refuse us. And had we been refused at the beginning, I wouldn't have minded. But I stood there for an hour behind stage. Act after act came up. I just want to say hello. No, can't do that. And I just didn't think that was proper. So it's been bothering me for a whole year. I have to be honest with you, a whole year. And in previous years, I had been permitted to come up and say hello.
Yeah.
And I just say hello, how great it is that Armenia has been independent since 1991. And I get off the stage. I don't try and belabor the appearance. And it just is something that bothered me. I have to tell you that.
Well, if there has been any misunderstanding there, I apologize for that. But at the same time, I was told about that you and Council Member Yusefian and there were some other not members but candidates who wanted to take the stage. I was told about this at 4 o'clock, and I said it's not possible. And I take your point that it's church hour, 12 o'clock. That's why this year we have done it between 1 and 2. And we would also appreciate if we are notified beforehand when we send the RSVPs, so that we can, make the necessary arrangements also. But I would really request that, it not be 4 or 5 o'clock, because it is really, it would be not a proper way to stop all the dancing. That's my opinion, but I will discuss it with my colleagues. I'll see what happens. Yeah.
I mean, I create a lot of excitement when I speak, if you can tell. We'll try and do better next year.
All right.
Okay. The issue is the 11th Annual Armenian Independence Day Festival. Do I have a motion?
Yes, I move 80.
And I'll second that.
Okay. It's a wonderful festival. I've attended for many, many years. It keeps growing in size, and as you mentioned, although there are thousands, literally probably over 10,000 people that attend every year, we have minimal issues. It's a wonderful day in Verdugo Park, so congratulations to you. And why don't you give us the date so people can begin to...
September 20, and it will be from 10 o'clock till almost 7 o'clock.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Roll call.
Council members Draymond?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Najarian?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Mayor Quintero?
Yes. Next, please.
At ADAF, the city manager regarding requests from the Armenian Bone Marrow Donor Registry, AMBDR, seeking the city's co-sponsorship of the 4th Annual Walk of Life Walkathon. F1 is a motion co-sponsoring the Walk of Life Walkathon.
I have one speaker card and quite a few speakers I see. Frida Jordan.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Frank Quintero, honorable council members. My name is Frida Jordan. I am the founder and president of the Armenian Bone Marrow Donor Registry. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak to you all for a few minutes regarding a topic that affects all of us at some point in our lives, cancer. You may personally have struggled with the disease, or most certainly everyone in this room has known a loved one who had a cancer. The type of cancer that our organization deals with is leukemia or blood cancer. Each year, more than 30,000 patients are diagnosed with leukemia, aplastic anemia, or other life-threatening blood diseases. For many years, their only chance of survival is to have a compatible donor to have their bone marrow stem cell transplant. Only 30% of patients can find a match within their own family member. The rest, 70%, they have to go and find their matches among unrelated bone marrow donor registries. For a minority group such as Hispanics, Armenians, Jews, this percentage is much higher because there are few minority donors registered in the national registries. To address this problem, nearly 10 years ago, we established the Armenian Bone Marrow Donor Registry, a non-for-profit independent organization. The mission of our organization is to find that precious compatible matched donor for all patients, Armenian and non-Armenians, who are suffering from blood-related diseases, and their last hope of survival is to have a bone marrow or stem cell transplant for a genetically matched donor. Since that time, the Armenian Bone Marrow Donor Registry has recruited over 15,000 donors, received and processed over 1,500 patients' referrals, identified 1,200 potential matches, and facilitated 9 bone marrow stem cell transplants in Armenia, United States, and Europe. We are a full member of World Marrow Donor Worldwide Organization and a co-op member of American National Marrow Donor Program, and in order to expand our scopes to help more patients in need. Through our yearly outreach programs such as Walkathon, we are trying to raise awareness within Glendale community, encouraging community members to participate in this life-saving project. Our 4th annual Walk for Life on October 3rd at the Verdugo Park, I hope by co-sponsoring this event, the Glendale City Council will join our life-saving operation. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I've had the opportunity to attend the Walk of Life. Oh, good. Keep going. Sure. Would you like her to say a few words?
Yeah, she likes to.
Oh, absolutely. And she has to give her name for the record.
She would.
My name is Mana Nazarian. I go to Marquette School. I'm a cancer survivor. Please don't charge us for the walk so we can fight cancer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dear council members and Mayor Quintero and city staff, my name is Armand Agakani. I'm the chair of this event, and I want to first of all ask all of you to participate in this event. We will not charge you, and we will allow you to speak anytime you attend the event. So please, we would love to have you there. This is something that has grown over the years, and our organization is about saving lives. That's all we do. Little children like Mane who have survived cancer are spokespeople for our organization. But I've seen also many children who have lost their lives against leukemia. So please be there, wear your walking shoes. We would love to have you there. We would love to have come up and say it's going to be a fun day. We're inviting all the members of the community, Armenian or non-Armenian, to participate. And I know Artie is going to be there walking. So thank you very much for your consideration.
Yeah, let me just say that I've attended the Walk of Life, and as a matter of fact, a few weeks ago, some of us on the council attended your fundraiser at the Hilton, which was a wonderful event, so we're looking forward to participating again. Go ahead and speak, ma'am, and give us your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is R.P. Kastanian. I represent Glendale Memorial Hospital. Sorry, I'm just a little bit touched by Mane. For the past several years, the hospital, the Memorial Hospital in Glendale, we have been the major sponsor for this organization. I think this is a great cause. It's about saving a person's life, and this is not just about Armenians, it's about everyone. So please be kind enough to don't charge us for that day. Thank you.
Any comment, Ms. Friedman?
Yeah, I just want to say that there's really no more important function and no more important event than this, which so directly can save a life. I lost a friend of mine last year who was a minority who was unable to find a donor because, as you said, minorities are underrepresented. And that's why it's important for people not only to walk and to be a part, but also to be a bone marrow donor. And it's easy, and being typed is painless, relatively painless. And it's just a wonderful thing, and you can really, if you're a match, have this incredible opportunity with no risk to yourself to save somebody's life. So I would echo you and to ask the community to really come forward and be a donor. No matter what ethnic group you are, there's probably somebody out there in your same ethnic group that needs a life-saving bone marrow transplant. So thank you all for what you're doing for the community.
I also want to say a few years ago I had the good fortune to visit the clinic in Yerevan when I was in Armenia, and the doctor has just done a wonderful job of putting that clinic together. It was just sort of sparkling there on that particular city street. So, Mr. Najarian.
And Councilmember Friedman discussed the typing. That's such an important part of this. And you're typing. In fact, I think I was at the Armenian Independence Day Festival when I got typed. Not this year, the year before. Yes. And it's very easy. There's no needle. There's no injection. It's just a cotton swab inside the mouth, and all your results go into the national or maybe international database for this. So you don't have to only be Armenian. Everyone's looking for somewhere a particular type, and if you go to the Walk of Life, I'm sure you'll have your typing booth there, and it's a great way. Of course, monetary donations I'm sure are well received, but if you can't do it monetarily, at least make yourself available for saving someone's life.
Thank you. Motion?
I'd like to move 8F1.
Second.
Roll call.
Council members Raymond?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Najarian?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Mayor Quintero?
Yes. Next, please. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and Council, next we return to oral communication. Discussion at this point is limited to items not part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Council may question or respond to the speaker. There will be no debate or decision of the City Manager or Mayor for the matter to the appropriate department for investigation and report.
Okay, the first speaker is Anahid Nazarian, followed by Talar Alexandrian.
Good evening, Mayor, Council member, and staff. My name is Anahid Nazarian. I'm a resident of City of Glendale. My husband and I bought a property in 2005 and wanted to build a new house. The location of the house is in 2006 Range Drive. We have 3 oak trees on our property, which 2 of them were saved, and one of them we got a permission from the city and paid all the fees to remove it for the driveway. This house has cost us a fortune and it has lasted more than 3 years to build this house around the oak trees, as you can, he's showing the pictures. The city forced us to put interlocking paving instead of concrete around the trees. We are about 10% short on the landscaping according to the city code. The DRB department is not giving us the final for the house. They are telling us to apply for variance. And honestly, we have no more energy, time, or money to go forward with anything else that they're offering us. We would like to ask you to take this matter under consideration, and especially now that California has a water shortage. Thank you. Did you show the pictures? I guess after what we just heard, nothing matters anymore, but please consider this.
It's important to you. Okay, we respond at the end of oral communication, so if you have a seat and
okay,
if
thank
there's
you
any
for your
response
time.
from the council, then we'll. Okay, next is Talar Alexandrian, followed by R.B. Durkasian.
Good evening, fellow City Council members and City staff. My name is Talar Alexandrian, and I'm a Christina Valley resident. I come before you today to propose the addition of a multilingual translator as regular presence within the City Council chambers each week. With Glendale being such a diverse city, filled with multiple ethnicities, it is only just to have a multilingual translator available for residents who do not speak fluent English. If the City Council truly wants to listen and hear the voices and opinions of all its constituents, then I believe a multilingual translator is necessary for the improvement and betterment of the Glendale community. If Mr. Karasakian can pass this up, please. Also, on behalf of ANC Glendale, I would like to invite you all to participate in our community fundraiser on Wednesday, September 9th from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. It'll be held at BJ's Restaurant, and all proceeds will go for the Relay for Life event, which will take place on October 17th and 18th. Thank you.
Thank you. R.B. Durkasian. Followed by Gary Cornell.
Good evening, I'm R.B. Dervokasian. I'm representing the staff of Glendale Health Center. I live in Glendale, and our clinic provides adult and gynecological services to our patients, and the patients are low income and uninsured people who live in Glendale and the cities around. Most of them are speaking Armenian. We are providing good quality health services to our community. Unfortunately, there is a proposal to jeopardize the Glendale Health Center by privatizing it. This was the LA County Board of Supervisors decided to privatize the Glendale Health Center because of their budget shortage. And I'm just gonna explain share the few reasons which is Glendale Health Center is important to our community and our city. The patients have been here, in Glendale Health Center, for years, and they build a strong relationship between providers and the nurses and the doctors, and we have the ability to serve a population which is 90% uninsured. Neither the potential private clinics appear to have the financial ability to take nearly 3,000 uninsured patients, and most of our healthcare providers and the nurses and clerks, which is one of them is me, we speak Armenian and we can translate and take care of our patients. Unfortunately, the outfit that is bidding to take the Glendale Health Center does not employ a single worker who speaks Armenian, and this is going to be a problem for our patients. I can give you more examples. We have a patient a diabetic patient who is coming for more than 3 years and be one of our patients. Because of this, since she speaks Armenian, she has to move and take her medication, refill her medication to go to Olive Hospital, which there is a waiting line of 8 to 10 hours to get to see a doctor over there. And basically most of them, they don't speak Armenian over there, they need a translator. And recently, we spoke to our patients. The patients decided to we took some actions against this privatizing. The patients and partners made more than a few hundred calls to the LA County, to Mike Antonovich's office, to opposing the privatization of the Glendale Health Center. On behalf of my fellow healthcare providers and our patients, I'm here tonight to ask you to pass a resolution opposing the privatization of Glendale Health Center, our community's medical home that Glendale residents depend on for quality and culturally appropriate care. Thank you.
Okay, if you have a seat, we can. That's fine.
And I'm Sybil Grant, and I have some folders for the council members, some background information.
Okay, thank you. Gary Cornell.
Mayor, council members, city staff. My name is Gary Cornell. I'm speaking as a private individual. I was on the sidelines, and it's pretty difficult to remain on the sidelines, Mayor, after the bombshell that happened on August 4th. Not too many step up here to the plate. Only when they want to be heard or they have a message they want to get across. What happened was city government at its worst. If you want to disrupt it, that's the way to do it. We have many gadflies. The most famous one I'm familiar with that I know was John Beach. I think, Mr. Draymond, you may know him. He's in your area in La Crescenta. And you could almost get a few chuckles when John came up to the plate here before you. His script was pretty much written. I'm not sure where he got his figures from, but I know they weren't from the city manager. But yet he always stuck to the facts. He always stuck to GWP and electrical rate. No one was assaulted. And that's how Mr. Beach was. He is a member, associate member. I occasionally get an email from him with GHEC. I know from what he's been telling me that the city officials there in, Mountain View, Arkansas, would like to give him a one-way ticket, perhaps back here. And for maybe what we heard on August 4th, it's not a bad idea to have Mr. Beach back. But I'd like to see more fun here. You people up there have a tough job. It's not easy. If others think they can do a better job, they should put their hats in the ring. I regret seeing what happened, and I'm sorry for it. I believe the mayor, under the circumstances, did an incredible job and extraordinary leadership and skill in holding the line. And because of that, I feel that that's why Mr. Howard probably doesn't have a lawsuit on his hand. We haven't even got the one, let's see, from Mr. Milano settled yet. And so we save that. I would hope we can learn something from this. Maybe the staff can review it. When a point of order is reached, and that takes precedence in Robert's rules, the mayor can have a toggle switch, or maybe the engineer, and so we can recalm it. Because when you have a walkout, that disrupts everything. City staff, people that came here, want to see government at work. It's just disruptive, and it has no place up here in the dais. So, also, I had a similar thing happen to me when we were discussing white garage doors at our Rancho San Rafael. It happened back in 2002, where I had a couple of members walk out. I asked our management there about that. They said if you start with a quorum and you only have 2 afterwards, that you can proceed. I know Mr. Howard has everything there, maybe the civil code, but I'd like to have you check on that. When you start out with a quorum and you have 2 left, if there is some provisions in there in the California Civil Code where you could still proceed. You can answer that at the mayor's direction, but you people are doing a fantastic job. And please continue the good work. We just had a recent election, barely 5 months ago. This is direction the constituents want you to go. You're going in that direction, and I want you to know that you have my support on that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, some of the speakers raised some issues, starting with Mr. Nazarian, and on the issue of the 40% lot coverage, et cetera. Do you have a response?
Mr. Mayor, if I can just initially talk about this issue. Mr. Nazarian has met with staff, with you, as well as the city manager, to discuss the issues that he brought forward, that his wife brought forward this evening. And the issue of the 40% in terms of landscaping in the front setback. And it's 50% and it's 40%, I believe, which is around the area which our assistant planning director, Tim Foy, will cover. Our arborist, as we indicated to the Nazarians, would be back tomorrow and is going to be reviewing the case to be able to let us know what the percentage is that would need to be remedied. And we would be able to get back with them as the arborist comes back and reviews the case. If you need any further discussion regarding any of this, of course, Tim Foy is available, and he has all of the background information for 2006 Rangeview.
Okay, well, we're obviously not going to be able to make a decision tonight, or even discuss in depth, or Mr. Howard will be telling us to be quiet. But some of the things I saw was, for instance, a green lawn and so forth. I mean, is there a way around some of these codes so that you can do xeriscape instead of grass? I mean, some way to conserve water, and that's what we're all after.
Sure, you certainly can do xeriscape instead of grass. As a matter of fact, most types of grass are now prohibited by the city under the Phase 2 water emergency. The changes that the council made to the landscape regulations with the Phase 2 water emergency did not reduce the amount of landscaping, it just changed the plant palette. So all the previous regulations that Ms. Beers referred to, such as 50% of the front setback area has to be live plant material, and a total of 40% of the whole lot area must be in landscaping, those all still apply. Just the
I know we're waiting for the arborist to get back, but then what after the arborist?
What we have asked the arborist to look at is that the landscaping as it was implemented put pavers much closer to the base of the protected oak trees than what had been shown in the plans approved by the Design Review Board and had been previously reviewed. So we would just like the arborist to, they have fallen short of the code minimum landscaping that is required. They're going to have to add some back. If the arborist feels that the oak trees have been at all harmed or are in danger, that would be a priority area for adding landscaping back or removing impermeable materials if we need to. That's why we're waiting for her to come back and look at it before we proceed with the solution.
And we're talking about a matter of days, right?
Yeah, she's due back tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay, thank you. The next issue was what are the procedures in terms of translators, Mr. Kasakian or Mr. Howard?
If given notice ahead of time, we are obligated to provide, or we'll find someone from the city to translate, and I'll defer the rest of the legalese to the city attorney.
So someone wanting to speak, if they give notice to the city clerk on a Monday, or even, I suppose, even a Tuesday perhaps, in the morning, we would provide, say they are monolingual?
Well,
No?
I need some
Tell us.
clarification from Mr. Kasakian. This item was taken up by the council a number of years ago, and the council essentially adopted a policy that individuals who want to provide their own translators or have translators provided at their own expense could do so, but the policy specifically did not require the city to provide translators at city expense. I don't know if there's the city clerk.
I'm sorry. Actually, you're correct. I confused that with ADA. I'm still thinking of ADA from this afternoon. And we have that actually for the ADA noticed at the top of our agenda. But for translators, they are to speak in whatever language that they want to, and then the materials will be translated and then provided to you afterwards. Thank you, Mr. Howard.
You're welcome, and that is the policy, and certainly the council wants to revisit the whole issue of translators and the like. We can bring that report back.
February 2007, when the council voted on that.
Very good memory.
Well, it was just before I joined the council, and if you recall, Mr. Mayor and Mr. City Attorney, I played that segment from the archives when it was an issue that was coming up quite consistently then.
Okay, and then finally, the Glendale Health Center is a county-run agency, correct? And so what you were talking about was that they're trying to privatize the services. Okay, well, I'm certainly in full support of what you're trying to do. I'm not sure that there's anything that the city council can...
Mr. Mayor, we can certainly take a look at the health center and get in touch with the Board of Supervisor, Mr. Antonovich's office, to find out what they're trying to look at and perhaps bring you back a short report to let you know, and then give us some guidance on whether you want to have this put on the agenda for further action. They're asking for a resolution, I think, to try to keep the county funding the health center as a county-run operation as opposed to privatizing.
And we're talking about the location on Glendale Avenue. Right. Okay, thank you very much. We'll put that the agenda.
Let's clarification. Are we going to put it on the agenda, or are we going to bring you back? Because I think we needed to. I'm looking over at the deputy city manager. Put together a report for you, so then you can then determine whether you want to have the matter on the agenda. Essentially, it's more information gathering. I appreciate that we've the information provided by the health center. I'd like the opportunity to contact Mr. Antonovich's office, get a full picture of what they're trying to do, so we can accurately give you all the information, so that we know what they're trying to do, and then you can better assess whether you want it on the agenda.
Okay, very good. That closes oral communications. Next. Oh, sorry. That closes my portion of oral communication. Mr. Draven.
I'd like to make only one comment, and that relates to Mr. Cornell's comments that the reason a lawsuit was avoided was because of the deft handling of the mayor after two council members, myself being one of them, left the dais. No offense to the mayor, he does a great job, but no lawsuit was avoided as a result of that. As a matter of fact, the sitting chair didn't have to close the activity in the room if he had chose, and it's certainly up to the mayor. The official business concludes at that point, but Mr. Mohill could have been allowed to continue on and on with racial stereotyping, ethnic stereotyping, and any other manner of offensive comments that he chose. As an elected city official, if Mr. Cornell is disappointed in me because I will not sit on the dais and listen to that, that's his choice to say that's unfortunate. I disagree. I think it is high time that elected officials do express concern about that kind of ethnic stereotyping and racial insensitivity. I just have a personal preference, and I will not sit on the dais and listen to that unchallenged before the dais. It doesn't truncate Mr. Mohill or anyone else's ability to say whatever he wants to say, but I don't have to listen to it, and I think if Mr. Cornell read the news press coverage of that, you'll see that they even went so far as to ask the opinion of a constitutional scholar on the subject who said the same thing.
On a motion to adjourn.
And I'm not sure what the exact thrust of Mr. Cornell's comments were. However, after that meeting, I think there were several people in the community who wanted to paint it a much darker shade of sinister than it actually was. In fact, the business of the city, the business of the people, had been concluded in terms of action items, in terms of official reports. All that was remaining was I believe Mr. Mohill was the very last speaker. So no one else behind Mr. Mohill was denied the right to exercise their First Amendment freedoms. And should it happen again, during oral communications, I would encourage the mayor or who's ever running the meeting to continue to take oral communication, which is entirely proper, Mr. Howard, as long as there's no action needed. That's my understanding.
Councilmember Draymond noted, the official business of the meeting would be concluded. I would actually, and I've done this in the past, I'd recommend that you go off television because there's no longer any official business. You don't want the public confused whether or not the official business is continuing. And certainly it would be no different than a meeting, an extension of a meeting in someone's office to have Mr. Mohill or anyone else continue to talk to less than a quorum of the council.
In fact, I think it was at some point, perhaps a year or longer, the speaker, the offensive speaker, was one of a group of people who insisted that they be given airtime before the city council meeting to address their remarks to the public in general, not necessarily before a sitting board of the city council. So just I recall.
Any other comments?
Move we adjourn.
Second.
Second.
We are adjourned.